Is that good?
Ready? Well, welcome everybody. I am Andy English. I'm a Perry Township trustee, have been for 16 years. So I'm flying solo tonight. We've been doing this the last couple of nights. We did Worthington Hills on Tuesday. We did Brookside, and we saved the best for last. So we got you guys tonight. But I'm the last man standing because nobody else could continue on. But no, everybody says they apologize. Jim Roper, who's our chair, and then Chet Cheney, who you guys probably know, Chad, very active in the community. Michelle Elliott is our fiscal officer. Steve Cesaro, chief. Beth Beatty, who's our township administrator. Lori Bruger, who is also with the police department as secretary. So we are here tonight to answer your questions regarding our levy that is coming up on the ballot, November 5th. But there's a couple of things a couple of housekeeping items that we need to kind of go over. First off is, whether you know it or not, state legislature passed a bill in 2022 called House Bill 140, called the Ballot Uniformity and Transparency Act. So basically, Cliff Notes version is any elected official or employee has to be neutral. We can only provide verifiable facts and things like that. So anything with the levy and bond, everything's factual tonight. I kind of find it hard to believe that we had to pass a bill to do that, but here we are. So we're going to try to answer every one of your questions. We will tell you that anything that doesn't get answered tonight, we got a lot of really good questions on Tuesday, a lot of really good questions last night, and we've been adding information to our website. So anything that you may have questions about tonight, everything's on our website. So you can go there and find out more information. On July the 15th of 2024, the Perry Board of Trustees announced their intention to include a 7.57 mil levy, 2.4 million police levy on the November 5th ballot. Okay. So one of the confusing points that we had is that if you guys voted in the spring election, you might have saw a Perry Township levy on it. So that was one levy that we placed on the ballot, and a lot of these things you have to do months and months in advance. So that was in December that we had to put that on the ballot. Well, interesting thing came up was we started to realize new revenues that were coming into the township that we didn't realize. So after looking at them, we said we can do better. So we actually did a kind of a bold move and pulled it off of the levy, which we did it, when we did it, they couldn't take it off, so it was on there. So if you voted yes or no, you get another shot at it this November, but nothing got enacted on that. So it is there, but we sent out a letter that you guys may or may have read or gotten, but it explains that whole, that whole thing. Okay, so we are, because you guys are a fairly new community to us, police levies, we have police levy that we passed in 2008. We passed the levy in 2015. This will be our next levy. History is anytime we budget for a levy, we're budgeting for 5 years. Okay, that's what we're budgeting for. So it'd be kind of like, and I'll use this analogy. If an employer came to you and said, hey, I want you to put your family budget together for the next 5 years, and then we're going to compensate you on that 5-year budget. So there's some things that we had to take into account, things that we had to balance, are things going to go up, things going to go down. So this levy is assuming 5 years. But the history that we've had, 2008, we didn't have to go back till 2015. And then the 2015 levy, we actually went to almost 10 years without coming. We had a lot of questions last night. It's like, why did you guys wait 10 years? And we kind of balance as a board. Is it better to go back to the taxpayers repeatedly or to stretch our dollars out. And as expenses and things like that come to fruition, that we can say, hey, we can go another year. Hey, we can go another year. We can go another year. So that's kind of where we're at with this levy, is that, you know, we have gone 10 years and now we're putting this on the ballot. So I've got Chief, who is going to come up and talk about all the behind the scenes, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. English is a little humble. He's also one of the best AV guys in the business. Yeah. So just saying. So again, we're here because we have a levy on the ballot. My job is not to tell you to vote for or vote against the ballot. I'm sorry, the levy. My job is to present information so you can make an educated decision for or against the levy on your own. That's a personal opinion. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is our agency. And before I go into that, one of the things I wanted to bring up about, kind of touch on what Mr. English said. Our levies, when they are passed, are the same amount of money every year from that point on. So the money that we collect off levies is based on the 2008 values and 2015 values. So what happens is over time, you have a straight line of funding, but all your costs keep going up. So, and how we stretch that levy is every year there's money that's carried over because we don't spend, if our budget is $500,000 and our levy brings in $1 million, the next year our budget doesn't go up by an extra 500,000. We still keep our budget and we forecast percentages, whether it be 5%, 6%, 10% on certain line items, because we don't know because of volatility of prices. So when that rollover comes, we get to keep pushing it forward. Eventually, where we're at now is our rollover is no more after 10 years, just because of costs.
Oh, one other thing just to mention on the levies and that. So the levy that was passed in 2008 was based on the property values that were in 2008. One of the questions that we got was, well, every time it increases, does that levy go up? No. So the 2000 levy is still based on properties in 2008, same thing in 2015. And then the recent reappraisal that you saw this year, that's what this levy will be based on. So just wanted to infill on that.
The levy is based on current year 2024 value. And if you're not familiar, I'll explain that here shortly, how that works. One of the things I want to talk about is our staffing. We had a staffing study done last year. And the staffing study recommends that we hire 2 officers as soon as possible, full-time, and in the future, as we reevaluate, hire 2 more. We're in the process. I know a lot of you have met most of our officers. We have a mixture of full-time, part-time, reserve, and we're in the process of transitioning to a full-time agency because it's harder and harder to find part-time people because there's not a lot of people that like doing this job as much as they used to. So there are some hard times in recruiting. So our current staffing is we have 15 full-time employees. There's a chief, a lieutenant, 3 patrol sergeants, 8 patrol officers, 1 detective, and 1 administrative assistant. On the part-time side, we have 9 part-time employees, which includes 7 officers, a record technician, which some of you probably know as Luke Laboon. Anybody know Luke? Mm-hmm. So Luke works in the administrative building, but he also serves as our record technician as kind of a part-time. He helps us out with these kind of things. So if you ever call for a public records request, we'll speak with him. We also have a compliance specialist who works part-time. Some of you may know her. I think she was here when you all first started. Mary Geis. I don't know if anyone knows Mary. So Mary came back as our compliance specialist. If you're not familiar, the state of Ohio has what's called the Ohio Collaborative. It's a board that the governor appointed to set forth policies and procedures for law enforcement. We're not forced to follow that. However, if we don't abide by their policy and procedures and meet their standards, we're not allowed to apply for grant funding from the state or feds. So we have to abide by that. And it's almost it takes a few hours a week to maintain that. And Mary agreed to come back and help us out with that. So she does about 3 hours a week just to help us stay in that compliance. We also have reserve officers, which reserve officers are sworn police officers, but they're unpaid. They volunteer their time. So they work for us as a way to pay back the community, do some community service, and they're, again, full sworn officers. We also have 2 chaplains. They volunteer their services with us as well. And I think One of them has been here for a function or two, David Nolan. So we also have another chaplain named Nathan Weller. So that's kind of the makeup of our department as it currently stands. Some of the things we want to talk about 2023 is some of our statistics. Some of the things that we had increases in certain things. Our calls for service went up, mutual aid requests went up. The one thing that went down from 23 and 22 is our traffic crashes. Our traffic crashes actually went down, I think, by 10. So anything that we can reduce is a good thing. We issue more traffic citations, business checks, house checks. The one thing that, as you all know, I know some of you have met Detective Charlie Mills. If you know Coyle, he is Coyle's handler. Most people don't know who Charlie is, they know who the dog is, so he's Coyle's handler. We had 37 more criminal cases last year than we did in the year prior. So again, we also had an increase of roughly 2,000 calls for service. A call for service is anything that is police related that we perform a function. So if I respond to a call when your alarm goes off, that's a call for service. If Mr. English is my partner on shift and he responds, that's a call for service to him as well. They're all calls for service because it's dedicated time from each car that responds. So those calls for service, it's not always multiple calls, but if 3 officers respond to the same address or the same call, it's 3 separate calls for service. So that's how those are, go ahead.
Why would, if it's a call for service and it's not an emergency kind of, you know what I'm saying? Why would 3 officers respond when you all have the same radio and dispatch? And you know that a squad car is going? Why would 2 more people go if you know, there's no weapons involved?
So it depends on what the call is. So like an alarm.
Domestic dispute,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, again,
All right, I answered.
you know, so you
Yeah.
just know the pretty face, you know everything. But again, sometimes those things happen, right? And again, even sometimes when it's just an alarm drop. Even though there's nobody home, the alarm goes off and we have to respond.
Okay.
It's always 2 officers, even on something like that, because you never know what you're gonna run into.
Okay.
So, and then as of 2023, this is something that gives me a little heartburn. Our response time is average of 14 minutes and 25 seconds. And part of that reasoning is normal shift, we have 2 officers per shift, cover the whole township. Sometimes we have 3 and we stagger the shifts to do some things. But on a non-priority call, due to traffic, locality, we go from Lane Avenue to Worthington Hills off of 315, which is at the Delaware County line. So during a rush hour traffic, if there's a theft report, if our officers are here to drive all the way to Worthington Hills and vice versa, we come here, that's our average response time. That's not a priority call, which means it's an emergency, but again, sometimes with only 2 officers, and if they're tied up on another call that's more priority than a report, it's going to take a little longer. The other issue that we run into is there's more call types that require 2 officers. And again, sometimes that's location, sometimes it's the nature of the call. Again, just a simple alarm drop is an automatic 2 officer response, because again, you don't know what you're going to walk into, because sometimes you don't know if it's false, right? Sometimes they can say, well, there's a key holder on site. They're still going to send 2 officers because there's an unknown there. So we still have to send 2 officers. The other side that we have, almost 50% of our patrol officers' time is committed to reactive and responsive, which means we're responding to calls. And some of that time is driving from point A to point B. So again, if you want to read anything on the staffing site that I referenced earlier, it's on our website and it references all these things. And the other factor is, I think you all know, as new developments grow in and around the township, it brings more traffic, more people, so it takes more time to go from point A to point B. So I don't want to talk too much about this. I want to explain some of the things that we do, where your dollars go to. One of the things we do is training. Every year, for the last 4 years, State of Ohio requires 24 hours of mandatory training per officer per year. We exceed that. We average somewhere between 40 and 50 hours per officer per year. We're a little closer to 50, but I wasn't sure the exact number by everything, so I just kind of rounded down. But it's one of those things where I'm going to use a phrase from our previous chief: you either pay now or you pay later. You pay now in training or you pay later in a lawsuit. So I believe, and I probably can't say this because it's an opinion, but I believe we have one of the better training departments in the area. I would like to think, I don't mean to disparage any other agency, but if we're in the news, it's for something good, not for something bad. So we make sure we maintain a standard how we do training. Our supervisors go through set training, our officers go through set training. And some officers receive more than that average of 40 a year, just depending on what their jobs are and what they do. So again, we try to make sure that our folks are trained, keep liability off of the department, township, and our residents. We also partner with several other agencies around us to combine for training, combine resources, so to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. Good. So this is an example of just some of the increased costs from 2008, 2015, 2023. This doesn't represent anything. These are the ones that stick out the most, that are most obvious. So one of the things that you can see is police cruisers. In 2008, an average police car cost $25,000 to purchase. In 2015, it was $28,000. In 2023, it increased to $46,000. And part of that is because Ford Motor Company did away with what's called state bid pricing. So I believe it was in 2022, a car that we purchased was $36,000. In 2023, it jumped to $46,000. And that was, there was nothing we could do with that. That's not, we're held at their mercy at that point. So we're just kind of stuck. And so that's one of the costs that get the change that increased. If you look at health insurance, our health insurance premium in 2008 was $154,000. 2015, it went to $208,000. 2023, we're at $362,000. So since 2008, it's double, more than double what our insurance premium is. Some of the things, again, that we have no control over. If you look at fuel, our fuel cost went from $11,000 in 2008, $17,000 in 2015 to $43,000 in 2023. So again, there are certain costs that we have no control, and we try to forecast that. Mr. English talked about how we try to forecast out 5 years. And I think I can speak to this. In 2020, we had a levy. In 2015 to 2020, the board looked at the levy and said, you know what, we can make this last a little longer. No one expected the COVID pandemic to change the cost the way it did. So again, and that's one of the other things, again, that constant levy funds that come in and costs go this way while our funds stay straight. So again, it just changes how we do things. One of the things that we do, we apply for grants. I believe in grant money. One of the reasons we do the collaboration is stay compliant. Last year and this year, we've received over $100,000 in grants. All of our body cameras that our officers wear was covered by a grant. The body cameras, the software installation, all those things were covered by a grant. We are around the $40,000 to $50,000 range this year in grant funds. One of the things that's not listed there, you all know what our radios look like, our walkie-talkie. So our personal radios or ones officers carry, the radios and cruisers. 2 years ago, there was a thing called dual authentication. All radios have to be able to have the ability to do dual authentication. So our radios have that ability, the other half didn't. So we have been fortunate enough to get some grants to receive some of those radios, but the average radio costs about $45,000 to $5,000 a piece. So again, that's an unfunded mandate that we didn't have a choice. They come, they say you have to do this. You all know what a BAC machine is? That's a good thing. Not you. BAC machine. If you've ever been arrested for drinking and driving, the machine that you have to blow into the tube. Breath like this. So I'm sure Mr. Rear back there, everybody else, that's a good thing. You know what it is, it means you haven't been arrested 4 times. Or some of you may just not want to say that. So either way, know what it is, but don't admit it. But the point is, as we found out last year, as of January 1st of 25, our current machine, which is 35 years old, and still, but it runs great. Trust me, I'd rather keep it. It runs amazingly well, but they will no longer accept the results and stay behind. So in order for us to replace that, it's $11,000. And they told us that last year. So we have ordered one, which I'm glad we have, because I think the price now is about $14,000. So we're supposed to receive it sometime next year, but we're getting $11,000 compared to 14. We ordered right away when we found out, so to be able to replace it. So there are things that we can't control that are mandated to us, such as the radios, equipment, and so forth. So there's just so many things that you can't prepare for because you don't know what's gonna happen. So last example I give, we all carry guns as police officers, right? I only get one bullet, but everybody else carries one. One of the things that we had to do earlier this year, everybody heard of Smith and Wesson?
Yeah.
So we used to carry Smith and Wesson firearms. We carried what was called Generation One. They were probably about 10 to 12 years old. Not that old for the lifetime, not for the service like a firearm. We had an officer in training whose firearm didn't function well during training, so we sent it to the gun shop. They contacted Smith and Wesson and said, we need parts. And Smith and Wesson said, we no longer service the Generation Ones. You have to use Generation Two, which we have some. We have a handful of Generation Twos that we've replaced over the years. They said, if you can find parts for Gen One, good luck. So we decided at that point, okay, what do we do, right? We have a majority of Generation One firearms, so we contacted our gun dealer and said, what do we do? What's it gonna cost to switch to Generation Two? And it was roughly about $12,000 to switch everything over to Generation Twos. It was, so what we did, instead of replacing Generation Two, was about $14,000 just to replace all guns. So we went with the all gun for $2,000 more, which should give us several years longer for service life. But one of those things that we were starting to talk about in the next few years, we need to think about replacing weapons, but the gun manufacturers are becoming like software and technology. After a few years, we're just not gonna support these anymore. So again, trying to prepare for that over the next 5 years to see what else can change, we don't know. So we try to prepare the best we can. So the question is, what would a 7.57 mil levy cost? So one of the things I wanted to explain, if you look at your property taxes, if you go to the Franklin County Auditor's website, what their address, there is a section that will tell you where your taxes go, what percentage goes where. On an average, and I think it's the same because we're double here, and I believe it's the same, but don't quote me 100%, but I'll use Worthington Schools. So Worthington resident that lives in our jurisdiction, or Perry Township resident with Worthington Schools, 65% of their taxes go to the school district. 15% comes to us. That 15% of your tax money that comes to us is spread between the police department, the fire levy, road levy. In general fund. And out of that 15%, we receive 58.
Oh, you asked me.
I think it was 50.
58.
Yeah, it was 58%
Yeah.
last night.
So
Yeah.
58% of the 15 comes to us. And, you know, fortunately, unfortunately, we're the largest department in the township, so we receive 58% of that 15.
And another question I gotta ask, they said, well, you know, can you transfer funds from like the road, the road department over to police and things? Each group has their own levies and they can only fund those operations. So it's not like it's a pot of money coming in and then we get to disperse it. It is police, road is road, general fund is general fund.
We don't have an income tax like a city or a village. And one of the things is, the good friend pointed out, when it comes to taxation and you pay income tax, if you receive a pay raise, you pay more taxes. That does not happen with property taxes, Mr. English explained. Once it's locked in at a certain rate, under our revised code, we can't collect more than what you voted for. So again, if you say this is it, this is what we receive. So again, I hope that makes sense. And yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say, the only caveat to that is if it's a brand new house being built, or you're adding an addition to your house, that's the only
Yeah.
time that will change.
Yeah, so the assessment comes as triggered by structural changes. If you change carpet or flooring, those things don't change anything, but a structural change on your residence will trigger an assessment. And your home value, if you look at the auditor's website, and we have a link, this PowerPoint is on our website as well. All the information we talked about tonight's on our website. If you go to it, if you can't find it, give us a call, we'll point you in the right direction and get you a copy. But if you go to the auditor's website, it has links to different things. And again, it talks about taxes and how those things are dispersed. There's an assessed value and there's an appraised value. Whatever your appraised value is today, you're paying tax on 35%. So you're not paying the full appraised value. You're only, so use round numbers, $100,000 home, you're only paying taxes on $35,000. That makes sense to everybody? Okay. So again, on July 15th, the board passed a resolution to proceed with the levy. They also passed a resolution, which is 172-24, recommending budget cuts in the event the levy does not pass. The one thing I'll tell you, the biggest cut to us will be staffing. We will lose all our part-time officers, at least 3 full-time positions. So again, there's a whole list. If you go to our website, that resolution is printed in full. You can see everything that would be affected by that. If you have questions, please give us a call. If you can't find that information, if you have any questions now, we're happy to answer.
Chief, are there public safety mandates that establish like a minimum staffing level?
There's not.
Really?
Our current minimum staffing by our policy is 2 officers, and most days we're 2, but one of the things that we've done, because we use part-time officers, so we have 6A to 2P, we have 2P to 10P, and we have 10P to 6A as shifts. But we also have what's called an evening mid-watch, which goes from 6P to 4A. One of our biggest struggles is there's always going to be somebody sick, injured, time off. Can't deny people time off because it becomes a fatigue and mental health wellness, right? So one of the things that we did, we put 2 officers on that evening mid-watch because the hardest shift to fill is if him and I are working on a Tuesday night and he gets sick, we have to pay someone overtime from second shift to stay over a few hours, or pay someone from day shift to come in because our part-time officers have full-time jobs. And a lot of them work during the week, so trying to get somebody, Mr. English, he works Monday through Friday, sometimes weekends, but if he has to be at work at 7 a.m. and we ask him to come in and work 10 p to 6 a.m. and he's not had that, he's not prepared, it's hard for a part-time person to do that. So we've eliminated overtime on our night shift, which is a great thing, and our part-time and our reserves can fill on the other shifts. And the goal of hiring 2 additional officers is to make sure that happens on the first and second shifts as well.
So your staffing is a management, right? It's not a contractual.
Correct.
You're,
Our bargaining unit does not cover that.
Dictate.
Yeah.
that's good work.
So that slide that said if your house is valued, you'd have 484,000 and your taxes are gonna go up by like $1,200. Is that the assessed, is that the 35?
That's 35% of that value.
So if my house is worth 750, it's not gonna go up. I'm not gonna pay 2,400. I mean, if on Zillow it's 750,
Right. You have to look at
I
what
have
the
to
auditor
pay
said.
35% of that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what Zillow or anybody else, you have to go with the auditor says.
Yeah.
So if you're a Franklin County auditor, if you take the appraised value and take 35% of that appraised value, that's what we will pay tax.
That's the assessed value. So
That's-
that's.
And the other thing, and I know that the auditor had it on there, and I think they still do, but if you go on there, anything that is on the ballot will show you and it will calculate, that's right, I mean, they still have that, right?
Yeah.
So it'll go on like, so it'll say, Perry Township, and then it will show you based on your personal house, what that would mean.
And that's that's that levy calculator that we
Yeah.
have up there. One thing I did mention to the folks last night, I went to test it out, and when you pull it up, it will have a parcel number there that's not Perry Township. And then it gives you an option to put in your address. Make sure you take that parcel number out. And then you can put your own parcel number in or put your address, otherwise you're not gonna get the right information.
Right.
Again, everything's listed on our website. You can get to the link to the auditor's website from our website, or you go directly to the Franklin County Auditor's. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple. So this is all, this 1,200, that's all new.
Yes.
In addition to what would be the existing, taxes on the 484?
About $909.
So you're more than doubling,
I'm sorry.
you're more than doubling.
I mean, essentially, like I looked mine up the other day and my house, I think, on the auditor's website is 461. And I paid $909 for the police department right now, and then it'll go up $1,200.
Okay, so we're well more than doubling.
Yes, it would appear that way, yes.
Also, just a question. What do the chaplains do?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What do the chaplains do?
So the chaplains provide a little comfort and wellness to our officers. Officers need some rough days, and sometimes they also assist some of our residents in a tragic situation. The chaplains ride with our officers. We've had child death, fatalities and crashes, DOAs, and the chaplains will come in at the family's request to just be a source of comfort.
Has there ever been any thought of a secular person as opposed to a religion?
I'm not.
Yes.
Under what circumstances would Perry Township's staffing be supplemented by Columbus Police or Franklin County Sheriff?
You have, so we have what's called mutual aid, that can help us, but the only way they will control or supplement, you have to contract. City of Columbus won't do it, the sheriff's office may do it, but I don't know for sure.
Sheriff's office, they've already said they're already extremely understaffed as it is, so they have to really pretty much take care of their territory. We have a deputy that comes into our meetings about once a month, so.
You have a question? Yes,
Do you guys compare your cost trending with other departments? Do you have access to that?
yes,
Is that trend comparable to what you're seeing in
as far as what we're asking for, or budget wise, or,
the cost increases that you're seeing?
yes, yeah,
Operating.
we compare ourselves to other townships, we can't compare ourselves to a city or village, but other townships are experiencing the exact same thing that we have.
Yeah.
We have an organization called the Franklin County Township Chiefs Association, just us. And it's what we do, we get together and everybody talks about how much did this book today, how much of that, so, you know, we're all kind of in the same boat, because none of the townships have an income tax.
And just from the trustee standpoint, you know, Beth does a really good job of, you know, tracking down and contacting other townships and like, what are you paying your officers, things like that. So we've kind of taken that, we're not gonna be the top, we're not gonna be the bottom, but we're gonna be somewhere, you know, somewhere in the middle, and that's worked really well for us over the years. So to be able to attract, you know, good talent and keep chief what, you know, the people that he needs, so.
There's a couple different sources, and I can't remember what it stands for, but it's CERB, and you can go up and matter of fact, I just got some reports, just to tell you that it compares like our township against other townships, similar size, sometimes bigger, we're pretty much the smallest, so I don't think we have to go in that direction. And then the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, they do a salary survey every year. And as whatever townships pitch in and share that information, that's always readily available as well.
Yeah,
But,
it's all-
and then I have, Chief and I both have contacts inevitably when we're looking at some kind of an increase, that we have go-tos that are similar to us that we tend to compare ourselves to on a routine basis, so.
Yeah.
Now those, I will say those figures so far as electrical, you know, gas, those are straight from our accounting software. So those were end of year numbers. Well, actually, what you saw there, it's the same with the payroll, but when it comes to trying to decide what we're gonna pay officers or other staff, or, you know, we had a huge increase in our health insurance. It was almost 25% last year. We've never seen anything like that before. So the first thing I did was start calling everyone. It's like, what are you guys doing? Are you in the same boat? This, that, and the other. And we're getting ready to go through that process again with our employee benefit manager, trying to find ways to, you know, the cost a lot of times are what they are, but are things we can be doing. As an example, they came up, said, you know, instead of telling your folks to go to an emergency clinic or even an urgent care, tell them to go to the mini clinic. You know, if they need an MRI, check these other sources, because you might pay $200 here and $1,000 there, which I had no idea over something along those lines. So we're trying to dig in as much as we possibly can and try and find those cost cutting areas wherever we can. But with the police, it's just so hard. I've been here almost 18 years, and when I first came in, our computers were in a box. The tickets were written by hand, you know, and now everything is technology, every single thing they do, and a lot of it's mandated, and those mandates, the cost falls on the chief for coming up with the monies for that sort of thing, so.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, there was a gentleman that was talking about block camera technology
Yes.
and I don't know if your police department uses that or would consider that if this got passed or.
So we don't currently have block of our own, if that makes sense. I think there are 7 block cameras in Perry Township that are privately owned, so they're owned by a business or apartment complex or neighborhood, something like that, so they give us access. We don't currently own any of our own. The benefit for us per block is to, when a crime occurs, we have access to the whole block system. We do, we do need to discuss at some point, because our detectives use that clock system to solve a lot of things, because sometimes you get on a ring camera out of a crime, you get a car, you want to say a white car. You can go to all the block cameras surrounding and pick out how many white cars were in this area at a certain time, and then narrow it down. We've been able to solve several crimes that way. But we have not gotten to the point where we purchased our own, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, in reality, we can't purchase enough cameras to cover Perry Township. The reason being is we're not square, we're a pocket here, roadway here, pocket there. There's no way we could ever do it. You would need, in reality, probably 50 cameras to do it. That's just unattainable. But to maintain a minimum, so we still have access to the system, is something that we'll look at down.
So, when we were considering that.
Yes.
Perry Township was very eager to get a community, a homeowner association. I assume like Worthington Hills still doesn't have it.
No.
No.
So
Okay,
it's a couple businesses, Roadside Country Club, Worthington Hills Country Club. If you're familiar with LEPD Firearms, on Bethel Road, so they, on that, the couple businesses got together, they have 3 cameras there. Arlington Point Apartments is considering it, and there's one more, I don't remember who it is, but there'll probably be somewhere in there, but it'll be 10 or less with the businesses and so forth here in the township.
But they don't have access to those cameras.
They do because they control, they give us access. So to see their cameras if we need it.
Cameras.
Do you need a warrant?
We do not, because all we're looking for is a car, we're not looking for, it's more of a. Yeah, they're block cameras, yeah, block cameras can be privately owned by a business or a apartment complex or.
Does their data feed into the block system, or is it just them?
It's just that we have access to pull the information, so if somebody broke into one of the businesses, we have access to look into the camera to see what cars were there, and they share that with us. If the business doesn't want to share it with us, they don't have to. And I'll use like Worthington Hills Country Club. They have them, they don't share their information with us unless we need something specific. If we ask them, hey, we're looking for between this date and time for this specific vehicle, they'll share that information, but they don't give us access to the camera to watch what goes in that.
can we, discuss again what we're currently paying up and beyond, like, let's just use your numbers up there.
Yeah.
At the home value of 484,400. So the 106.95 a month or the 1283 per year is in addition to what we are currently paying
Correct.
above.
Yes,
Correct.
that's,
And I think the closest was,
Yeah.
Mr. Reary back there, because his home value's pretty close to this, so. it'd be-
And I'm sorry, how much did you say you were paying, sir?
909. I'm trying to type it in here right now so I can give you like real numbers. I don't know if that's mine or not, but.
It's, but it's close.
And again, the levy estimator, you can go in and it also shows past levies and
Yeah.
that sort of thing, or you can just go up on the main page, the summary, and click on tax distribution to see what you're paying right now.
yeah, if you go to the Frank County Auditor website, there's like a bar on the left side, that's a different thing. If you go to the tax estimator, click on that, it shows you all the levies that are current. And then if you add this information, it will give you total.
Specific to your property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we don't have an income tax. I just realized that. I mean, doesn't matter, most of us are retired, but
Right,
Right.
yeah,
we're
we,
working.
yeah, we don't have any.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? And if you think of anything, please reach out. If you can't find it on our webpage, please give us a call. If we can't answer, we'll find somebody that can. Thank you all for your time.
You're great.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.